Taste for Red by Lewis Harris. Being a vampire is a solitary business, or had been until now. For months I lived in seclusion behind the walls of Grimm Manor. I secretly watched the world from the shadows of More Gloom Woods. I spied on unsuspecting neighbors, studied the comings and goings of innocent children at play up and down the tree-lined sidewalks of Cherry Street. Unseen and protected within the walls of my hidden lair high atop the Oak of Doom, I saw it all. I knew every inch of the family grounds, every twisted tree and blade of grass. I knew where my dog, Razor, had buried every bone. Unfortunately, I was unable to remain hidden forever. I was compelled to leave my secret world and venture into the unknown. On orders from my parents, and against my deepest wishes, I was forced to attend 6th grade at Sunny Hill Middle School. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Mr. Dumlock, horrible and fat, stood at the front of the classroom and whacked his ruler against the top of his desk. It was my first morning. The mob of kids ceased shouting, brought their annoying laughter to an abrupt halt, and turned a roomful of curious eyes to stare. How ridiculous they looked. I stood alongside the cologne-soaked teacher and tried my best not to breathe. What did he do, bathe in the stuff? "All right, everyone, be quiet," Dumlock began, grumbling, his drooping jowls quivering like jello. His cheap scent made me dizzy. "We have a new student joining us today. This is Stephanie, Svetlana," I corrected, cringing. I despised the name Stephanie. How could my parents have been so cruel? "What's that?" Dumlock peered down at me through round spectacles, his wiry eyebrows clutched like kissing caterpillars. "Svetlana," I repeated, looking up at the poor man's silly face. "It's Romanian." "Oh, you're Romanian?" he asked, feigning interest. He pasted a cardboard smile across his chubby face. His teeth were stained an awful yellow and in desperate need of a cleaning ASAP, as soon as possible. "Call the dentist, Dumlock," I thought, smiling my own false smile as I sent him the thought. I said, "I'm from Texas, actually." His smile waned. Could this sad specimen of an instructor possibly teach me anything? I doubted it. I was certain the man didn't even floss. "Well, anyway," he cleared his throat, "let's everybody welcome Svetlana Grimm." "Welcome, Svetlana," the kids sang in unison. Ugh, it was the opposite of music to my ears. I followed Dumlock's pointing finger to the only empty seat in the classroom, as if I couldn't have figured that out for myself. I passed through the whispers and stares and slid my stack of newly issued textbooks beneath my desk, all but world history, which I needed for this, the first class of what was certain to be a very, very long day. The girl seated at the desk in front of me turned and told me her name was Sandy Cross. "I've seen you," she said. "You live on Cherry Street next to the Bone Lady." What? How did this mischievous minx know me? The Bone Lady? She must have meant Lenora Bones, the skeletal old woman who had recently moved into the brick house next door. I'd read the name on the mailbox in front of the house during one of my clandestine explorations of the neighborhood. I wrinkled my nose at the annoying girl's bubblegum breath. Did she chew gum for breakfast? And what was with her crazy hair? It looked as if someone had replaced her real hair with a wig of blonde yarn and then jammed her fingers into an electrical outlet. I could hardly see beyond the mass of frizz to Dumpy Dumlock sitting before the classroom, following his finger as he read down the roll. Sandy Cross went on. "You live in the house with the mean dog, and your dad drives a green car, am I right? The big house with the tall fence, right? My dad hates that fence. He wants to know why your dad painted it black." Who was this girl? Had she been spying on me? And what did she mean by mean dog? My lovable Razor was a perfect dog, a pure angel. Unless you messed with me, of course, and then you were dog food. "How do you know all this?" I asked, trying not to reveal my displeasure. "I live in the corner house, the one with the trampoline. I'm sure you've seen it." Of course. One of the trampoline kids. Now I recognized that big bush of yellow hair. I'd seen Little Miss Bubblegum plenty of times, bouncing like a lunatic in her front yard. "Why don't you ever come outside?" Sandy Cross asked. She threw a thumb to her left and said, "This is Dwight Foote. He lives 2 streets over on Mango Court." The kid next to her, I'm not kidding, had a head as big as a basketball. He wore moon pie thick glasses that magnified his eyeballs into giant blinking blueberries. "Yeah, I've seen you too," he chimed in. "You're always up in that tree house. The Oak of Doom. Did everyone in this crummy school know my business?" "You're the girl with the binoculars." This last remark came from the boy seated behind me, an Asian kid with a mouthful of braces. I was surrounded by hostiles. I'm a bird watcher, I explained.
Yeah, me too, Dwight Foote said excitedly, his blueberry eyes widening. Me and my dad keep an alphabetical and numerical record of all the types of birds that visit the feeders in our yard. Do you have any bird feeders? We have 2 in the front yard and 1 in the back. We mostly get blue jays in the—
Can it, Foote? Sandy ordered. This girl isn't a bird watcher, she's a spy. A spy? What a vile accusation. True, but extremely rude. I could, however, easily handle the situation. I said, it's a scientific fact that bird feeders upset a bird's natural ability to fend for itself in the wild. I choose to enjoy birds in an undisturbed habitat, especially the playful games of the red-breasted robin. I also appreciate the majestic cardinal who is— Sandy interrupted. Sure you do. Spy. Why haven't you come to the school before? The Asian kid asked. He raised his hand and answered, here, after Dumlock called the name Fumio Chen. I'm homeschooled, I answered. Or I was homeschooled. My mom started a new job today, as a substitute teacher of all things. Now she'd be teaching mobs of strange kids just like Dumpy Dumlock did. How could that be more rewarding than teaching brilliant me? You'll like it here, Fumio predicted. Sunny Hill is an awesome school, Foote promised. But despite assurances, the day began poorly. Not only did Dumlock smell like a puddle of cheap perfume, he was also a terrible teacher. History class was boring. My mom could teach circles around Mr. Dumlock. All he did was read from the book, blah, blah, blah. Very lame. He didn't incorporate any funny voices, or act out any stories, or make any portion of the class the least bit interesting. How was I going to remain awake in his classroom day after day? It was total torture. After history came math, predictably awful, definitely not the subject where my fancy takes flight. I think the teacher had a glass eye, though, so that was somewhat cool. Then gym class, which was gross. I'm never happy in shorts. Never. After that, it was time to head to the cafeteria for lunch. Since I eat only red foods, I'd brought my lunch along with me. In vampire movies, Hollywood hacks perpetuate the myth that vampires must drink blood in order to survive, which is simply not true. Think about it. How can anyone live by drinking blood? That might work for a mosquito, but it's not fit food for an advanced specimen lording over the top of the food chain, is it? I'm a vampire, not a tick. The truth is, real vampires can eat any food, so long as it's red. For lunch, I had packed a box of cranberry juice, sliced strawberries, a ham sandwich— white foods are neutral, so removing the crust from white bread makes it perfectly edible— and a wedge of red velvet cake. As I feasted, Dwight Foote plopped down on the bench across the table from me. He had a plate full of spaghetti, which would have been fine for me to eat if I'd picked the green peppers from the sauce.
What classes do you have after lunch, Svetlana?
He asked, cramming a mouthful of pasta into his big head, sucking up a wayward strand of noodle and throwing tomato sauce onto his thick eyeglasses. He swiped the cuff of his shirt sleeve across the lens. Charming. English and then science, I said.
Cool. I've got Miss Larch for last period science too. She just started teaching here after Mr. Boyd went on the lam.
On the lam? What was this kid talking about?
Blue Town, he said. Vanished. Mr. Boyd's class was a cakewalk, but Miss Larch is a royal pain.
He shook his big head, frowning.
Her science class is hard. I'm talking Jeopardy hard.
His giant eyes swam like blue fish behind his glasses. Blink, blink.
But after lunch, I go to gym, which I'm excellent at. I might be the fastest guy in the whole school. Right now, my ankles are pretty swollen, though. Too many squat thrusts, I think. Soon as they heal up, I'll probably go out for track, or football, or basketball, or wrestling, or golf.
A meatball dropped off his fork and fell into his lap. Oh, brother. Who was this guy kidding? I tried to probe his mind, but there was nothing there. A vampire has extrasensory perception. ESP, you know. I can sometimes read a person's thoughts or even control the physical body if the victim's brain is sufficiently developed. Apparently, Foote's lame brain was too small for my vampire powers to find purchase. From the other side of the cafeteria, the puffy-haired blonde Sandy Cross approached with 2 giggling friends in tow.
"How's your first day of school going, Stephanie?" she asked sweetly.
Her lips curled into a sugary smile that I wanted to wipe off her dimpled face. Stephanie. How dare she call me by that horrid name? If I were a bloodsucker, she'd be the first one drained. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me ruffled. I wouldn't allow myself to be irritated by her intentional use of that oh-so-boring name. I smiled, thinking that Stephanie was nearly as bland as the name Sandy, if that was possible. The name is Svetlana, I corrected.
Oh, that's right.
She was all dimples, teeth, and hair. She wore a hideous pink belt and a too tacky seashell necklace. She had rhinestones fastened to the pockets of her jeans. I'm not kidding. Her two friends were obviously sisters and equally fashion-challenged, cloned Barbie doll types wearing identical pink belts and the same dopey seashell necklaces. One was as thin as the spaghetti disappearing off Foot's plate, and the other was even skinnier than that. They clung to either side of Sandy Cross like parentheses. "This is Marcia and Madison," Sandy said. Of course they were. The thinner one, Madison, said, "You shouldn't wear all black. It makes your skin look washed out." Fashion criticism from one half of the number 11. Perfect. I looked down at my favorite black t-shirt, black pants, and black shoes. My fingernails were painted midnight black to match my raven hair. "You look kinda like a mime," squeaked the other one, Marcia. "My dad thinks mimes are stupid," Sandy added. Her rosy chipmunk cheeks glowed. What would blood taste like, I wondered.